Hey Blue Jays, this is Mr. Teague, and this is a video about our weekly packet that's due on 4/6/2023, and it is the Carnegie book. It's pages 1383 through 1399, and I'm going to go through the packet and get you set up for this week, okay? So here we go. So this is the packet. This is the front page. This is your multiplication practice. So you guys are able to do that. Okay, the next page is Math Detective. And what you do is you just read the story. You follow through all the information. You answer the questions. Some of the information is in the chart. Some of the information is in the story, so you have to read it completely. Don't forget to read this, because there are answers within here that you will need. And then you're going to fill out this chart right here. Okay, and that information also is in the text. Okay, so now this page here, this is page 1383. This is in your weekly packet that I gave to you. And so the warm-up, Mrs. White asked the 25 sixth graders in her class, how many pets do typical sixth graders in their class have? Miss White summarized the responses in the table. So this is the table. And I think I need to zoom in a little bit more, maybe. Let's try that. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing it says, number one, about how many pets does each sixth grader in Mrs. White's class own? How do you make your decision? So what you want to do is to figure out the average. So the first thing you have to do is total the total number of students. So this is the total, which is 25. Then you total the total number of students, so this is pets, so that's the total for pets. And then you're going to take 44 divided by 25, and you get, on average, a little bit over 1. Okay, I didn't write down the decimal point. Okay, learning goals for this packet is you're going to recognize and design statistical questions and anticipate variability in data related to the question. You're going to differentiate between surveys, observational studies, and experiments. You're going to describe the 4 stages of the statistical process. You're going to discuss the different types of data that can be collected, displayed, and analyzed. And you're going to analyze and interpret the bar graphs and circle graphs. Okay, these are key words here, the vocabulary that you need to make sure you understand as you go through the packet. Okay, if you don't understand something, then just Google that word up, and you can have a clearer understanding of what that word means. So variability, data, statistical questions, statistical process, categorical data, quantitative data, population, sample, survey, observational study, experiment, bar graph, frequency, frequency table, relative frequency table, and mode. Okay, so you've been solving mathematical problems throughout the course. Now you will study statistical problems. How are mathematics and statistics familiar or different? Okay, so turn the page. This is page 1384. Okay, so now on this page I gave you in class that page that was A through O, and we had to decide whether they were statistical questions or not. So you really don't have to write anything for one. So in statistics, variability means the value of the attribute being studied can change from one person or thing to another. Data are categories, and numbers are observations gathered in response to a statistical question. So statistical or not, that is the question. Have you ever wondered how much money do professional athletes make? Or how long are books assigned to sixth graders? If so, you have asked a statistical question. If you have sought out the answer to your question, you have engaged in the statistical process. Cut out the questions provided at the end of the lesson, which we did, and I just gave you the whole sheet. Read each question and sort them into as many groups as you like. There must be more than one group, and there must be at least 2 questions per group. Well, we did that as a class, so. And you don't have to write anything for one. Now we're going to go down the page, and it says, in this module, you will begin your formal study of statistics and the statistical process. Statistics is a problem-solving process, also called an investigative process. Because the heart of statistics is about determining a possible answer to a question that has variability. Statistical problem solving begins with a statistical question. A statistical question is a question that anticipates an answer based on the data that vary. Number 2, which questions from your sort are statistical questions? Explain how you would expect the answer to those questions to vary. So on your sheet A through O, as we did it in class, you're going to list the statistical questions, and those are C, G, H, I, M, N, and O. So you're going to write this on your paper. Statistical questions are C, G, H, I, M, N, O. Okay. So if I'm going a little bit fast, you can always pause the video and start it again. And okay, so let's turn the page. We're going to go to page 1385. Okay, it says formulating statistical questions. The statistical process has 4 components: formulating a statistical question, collecting appropriate data, analyzing the data graphically and numerically, interpreting the results of the analysis. This lesson provides an overview of the statistical process, but you will continue to use the process throughout your study of statistics. Statistics is about posing interesting questions that you want to answer about varying attributes. Analyze the question posed by Bianca and Rajan. Okay, so let me get this centered. Analyze the questions posed by Bianca and Ryan. What clubs am I in? How many students are in the chess club? Rajan, what clubs do my classmates belong to? How many members do the clubs at my school have? So question number 1, explain why Bianca's questions are not statistical questions, but Rajan's are. There is only one answer and no variability in her answer, whereas Rajan does have variability and has variability in the answer. Okay. Number 2, move this up. Number 2, what kinds of answers do you expect from Rajan's questions? So the answers will vary. His answers to the second question are numbers. So that's the 2 difference between these 2 questions, right? Okay. Turning the page. Okay. This is page 1386. Make sure I get this centered right. Okay, so answering categorical data or qualitative data are data for which each piece of data fits into exactly one of several different groups or categories. Quantitative data or numerical data are data for which each piece of data can be placed on a numerical scale and compared. So at the top of the page, answering a statistical question requires collecting variables, and you will learn about 2 types of data: categorical data and quantitative data. Number 3, write the answers to Rajan's questions. Number 3, would the answers to Rajan's questions be categorical or quantitative questions? So Rajan, his first question is categorical, and his second question is quantitative. Number 4, gather the statistical questions the questions from the statistical or not activity, which was that sheet that I gave you, A through O, which questions have categorical questions and which have quantitative answers. So if you go through that sheet, A through O, where we decide whether it's statistical or not statistical, we could also go through that sheet and define whether it is a categorical question or a quantitative data question. So your answers for your sheet, A through O, categorical questions are C and M, and your quantitative questions are C, H, I, and N. Okay, number 5. For each question, determine if it is a statistical question. If it is not, rewrite it as a statistical question, then state if the data would be categorical or quantitative. So 5A, how many text messages did you send and receive yesterday? So this is not a statistical question because it only has one answer. And if I were to rewrite it as a statistical question, that question would now be, how many texts do you receive in a typical day? 5B, what is the most popular school mascot? So this is a statistical question, and it is a categorical question. 5C, sorry, let me move that up. 5C, how much time did you spend watching TV or playing video games last week? So this is not a statistical question. And then if you were to rewrite it, you would rewrite it as, how much time do 6th graders spend watching TV? That would now be a statistical question. Okay, we're going to turn the page to 387. So it says, how many hours do 6th graders sleep each night? Is this a statistical question? And yes, it is. This is a statistical question, and it is quantitative. And then E, what is your favorite sport? This is not a statistical question. To rewrite it as a statistical question, it is, what sport is preferred by the students at my school? Number 6. It says, write at least 2 additional statistical questions that you would be interested in answering. State if the data would be categorical or quantitative. Okay? So I'm going to let you create that. You just need 2 questions. You need 2 statistical questions, and you need to tell me whether it's categorical or quantitative. Okay? It's page 387. We're going to turn the page. Okay, so up here at the top of the page, methods of data collection. So for this activity, let's consider the topic of school lunches. Write 3 statistical questions that you could ask about school lunches. So one question could be, what is the most popular school lunch at your school? Another question could be, how many students eat school lunch each day at our school? Another question could be, do students prefer the classic or the lower calorie pizza crust? I'm going to move my paper up. The second component of the statistical process is to collect the data to answer the statistical question. A statistical question can be answered by collecting data from an entire population, or more commonly, from a sample of a population. A population is an entire set of items from which data are collected. A sample is a selection from a population. For example, to answer the question, how tall are 6th graders, using the population of all 6th graders, you might need to determine the heights of every 6th grader in the world. However, you could choose to answer the question by collecting data from a sample of 6th graders. The 6th graders at your school, this would not be a random sample. Three common methods of data collection are surveys, observational studies, and experiments. In a survey, people are asked one or more questions. Similarly, in an observational study, the researcher, you, collects data by observing the variable of interest. In an experiment, the researcher imposes a condition and observes the results. Okay, we're going to turn the page to 389. Okay, so it says, let me separate it. Okay, so you could conduct an experiment to investigate if sixth graders perform better on an assessment if they read a textbook or watch a video about the material. You would randomly assign half the students to read the text and half the students to watch the video. All students would be given the same assessment. You would compare the scores of the students in the two groups. For each statistical question, you wrote in question 1, identify the population and the sample of interest. So 2A, a population would be all of the school lunch daily menus. The sample would be a selection of school lunches I include on the survey. 2B is the population would be all school days, and the sample would be the days I surveyed or observed the number of students who eat school lunch. 2C, your population would be students at school. Your sample, students who took part in a taste test experiment. Okay. Number 3, do you think a survey, observational study, or an experiment would be the best way to collect data to answer your statistical question? Explain your reasoning. If you were to conduct a survey, you would ask students to name their favorite school lunch or select from a list. If you were to conduct an observational study, each day for a week, count how many students eat school lunch during each lunch period. If you were to conduct an experiment, you would have each student in the sample try each crust and vote for their favorite one. Okay, we're going to turn the page to 1390. Okay, so here we go, 1390. So it says, suppose you are interested in the characteristics of sixth graders at your school. Formulate 3 categorical statistical questions and survey your class to obtain a sample. So we're going to simplify this a little bit, where instead of doing 3 questions, we're just going to do 1. So the question we're going to do is, how many students have a cell phone? Okay, that's going to be our statistical question. In the statistical, I'm going to move up. In the statistical process, after you collect the data, it is time to analyze and interpret the results. Analysis includes selecting the most appropriate graphical display and numerical summaries for your question and your method of data collection. You already have experience displaying and summarizing categorical data using bar graphs and circle graphs. A bar graph displays the categorical data using either horizontal or vertical lines on a graph. The height or length of each bar indicates the value of the category. A circle graph, often called a pie chart, displays categorical data using sectors or wedges of a circle. It shows how many parts of the whole relate to the whole and how many parts of the whole relate to the other parts. The area of each sector corresponds to the percentage of the part with respect to the whole. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next page, which is 1391. So 1391. Nicole and Neil were interested in the favorite sports of sixth graders. They surveyed their class of 30 students. Then they displayed their class data in different ways, analyzed each graph. So here you have Nicole, and she did a pie graph. And she figured out her frequency and then labeled it by the sport. Neil created a bar graph He's got his sports along the bottom here, and he's got the quantity or the frequency here. So number 2, how are the graphs similar? How are they different? The graphs display the same data. Neil's graph shows the number of students who preferred each sport. Nicole's graph shows the percentage who preferred each sport. Okay, I'm going to turn the page to 1392. Okay, 1392. In order to create the graphs, Nicole and Neil determined the frequency of each response. A frequency is the number of times an item or number occurs on the data set. They then recorded the frequencies in a frequency table. A frequency table is a table used to organize data according to how many times a data value occurs. Once the frequency is known, you can determine the mode. The mode is the value of the values that occur the most often in the data set. You can extend the frequency table to display relative frequencies. Also, a relative frequency table displays the ratio or percent of occurrences within a category to the total of the category. To determine the ratio of each category, set up a fraction with the part in the numerator and the whole in the denominator. Then determine the percentage, divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so if you're going to see on this chart, this is a relative frequency chart. And so football, you had 4. You had total students of 30. You divide 4 by 30, you get 0.133. And then when you convert that decimal to a percent, you get 13.3%. So softball was 3 over 30, which is 10%. Basketball is 7 over 30, which is 23.3%. Baseball is 2 over 30, which is 6.7%. Wrestling is 1 over 30, which is 3.3%. Gymnastics is 5 over 30, which is 16.7%. Volleyball is 3 over 30, which is 10%. Track is 3 over 30, which is 10%. And swimming, which is 2 over 30, which is 6.7%. Okay. So number 3, we've completed the frequency chart. Number 4, it's asking, what conclusions can you make about the most popular sport in Nicole and Neil's class? Use the table and graphs to explain your reasoning. So if we look at our frequency chart, we see that basketball has the highest number and it has the highest percentage, and it is the most popular. Then comes gymnastics at 5 over 30 or 16.7%, and then wrestling, which is 1 over 30, which is the least popular. Okay. Okay. So that's page 1392. We're going to go to page 1393. Okay. So number 5, it says compile your class's response to the 3 survey questions. Well, we're just going to do 1. You asked in question 1, record the frequency of each response in your table. So from our class data on who has a cell phone, number 1, what is the frequency? So we're going to do this per class. So when you come to class, we're going to figure out how many people came to school that day in that class, and then we'll get a percentage of who has a cell phone and who doesn't. And then once we have that data, we need our total number of students. Then we need the total number that do have a cell phone, and then the total number that do not. So we are going to determine what is the frequency that do have a cell phone, and then we're going to determine what is the frequency that do not have a cell phone. Then once we have that data, we're going to go to number 6, and it says create a graphical display for your assigned survey question. What conclusions can you make about your class based on your graph? So from your data in number 5, you're going to make a histogram showing students that do and don't have a cell phone. So you're going to have a, on on the bottom part, right, you're going to have one column or bar is going to be students that have a cell phone. And the other bar graph is going to be no cell phone. And this is the x-axis. And then we're going to have the y-axis. And you're going to put your numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And this number here will probably be determined by how many people we have in the class. Okay. Okay, that's 1393. 1394, you can skip. We're not going to do that. 13. I don't know where I messed up. 1394. I guess I took some pages out. Oh yeah. So 1395 and 1396 are the A through R chart. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. We are going to skip page 1397 because that's just vocabulary. If you're not sure what those are, you should make sure you figure out what those words mean. Page 1398 we're going to skip, and 1399, which is just a review, and we're just going to skip that. Okay, so that is the end of the packet. This packet is due on Thursday for 6. Okay, it needs to be totally complete and turned in. Okay, and then you have no school on Friday. Okay, and then when you come back on Monday, 4/10, I am not going to accept this packet. So if you don't turn it in on Thursday, I'm not going to accept it. You're just going to get a failing grade for it. Okay? Okay, guys, that is all I have for you today. I will see you Monday at school. And this is Mr. Teague signing out. And always question, always wonder. Okay, guys, I will see you on Monday. Have a great day.